Welcome to another episode of Mind Your Autistic Brain Talk Show. I am really excited because not only is this Self-Care September, but I have the queen of self-care, Miss Izzy Fakkel, who is from Autie Self-Care on Instagram. She has an amazing account, and she has also made it as a finalist, and she is a nominated finalist for the We Go Health Awards. I'm really, really excited for Izzy, and I just want to celebrate her accomplishment there because so many people nominated her and recognized that she's doing amazing things. Izzy is about to go to university. This is her first big venture far away from home. And so she's been really diving into what her self-care is and what her boundaries are. And, we're moving into internal and external boundaries with our self-care in this final week leading up to our workshop coming up on Friday the 24th at 3 o'clock. So make sure, if you're not yet registered, you get registered for that Part 2 workshop because we're going to be diving in deeper into our self-talk series from this last week and now our internal and external boundaries. Hi, I'm Carole Jean Whittington, and you're about to experience the new way to thrive in life and relationships as a late identified autistic by unveiling who you are, what you love, creating balance, and being the leader and creator of your best life. Get ready, because this is where we go against the mainstream. We say no to outdated society norms, and we say yes to who we are in order to create a joy-filled, balanced, and more neurodistinct world. Ubuntu. Welcome to Mind Your Autistic Brain. Welcome to the show, Izzy.
Thank you. Hi. Thank you for having me.
Well, I am thrilled you are here. So, Izzy, share a little bit of your autism journey with us. How did you discover and learn that you're autistic? And what does that mean to you?
Well, I think it was kind of first introduced to me when I was in year 11, so it was that age 15. I had obviously, I'd grown up not really, fitting in and just, I'd always kind of known I was a little different. And then it was a teacher at school who called my parents aside and they were like, look, we think, Izzy might be autistic. And when I was first told then, I was just in immediate denial. I was like, no, I can't be. And I think I guess I just had a lot of internal ableism back then. I didn't really know what autism was. And my immediate thing was, no, I don't want that label on me. And then went another 2 years struggling with mental health and everything. And then I was kind of in the mindset of, okay, I'll go for an assessment for a diagnosis. It can't get any worse. I was rock bottom.
I think so. That's so relatable.
Yeah. And then I obviously was diagnosed. I got my report and I just read through it and I was like, oh my God, everything makes sense. And that was kind of the turning point for me because I've always had low self-esteem and I've never really, I've always hated who I am. And it was that moment where I was like, oh, there's a reason, there's it was everything, it was literally everything made sense. It was the best feeling. And then, I obviously then started looking at the actually autistic community, which is amazing. And I just discovered all these people who had been through the exact same thing that I had. And I was just wow, I'm not alone. There are people like me. Yeah, I may not have come across them yet, but I do have a place here. There are, because I guess a lot of us feel like the world, isn't right for us. And I think when you discover the community and it's just knowing that, you can all support each other. I found some of my best friends online, which is
Me
weird.
Too.
Yeah. Which is
Me
weird.
too.
Because I only joined less than a year ago, but it's just, yeah. And ever since then, I guess I've just been, exploring more about autism and just every time I read something, I reflect and I'm like, how does that link to my childhood? And it's just it's just the best feeling. And it's just, just learning about yourself. And then, in March, I think it was, I kind of decided, okay, my family and friends want to learn more about autism, but they don't really, know a lot. So that was when I first started my Instagram account. And it was private at the time, just for my family and friends. And then my mum was like, oh, well, you should think about maybe opening it up a little bit, because, so there are some people who might benefit from like, meeting another autistic person. And then, yeah, and then it just kind of spiraled. And yeah, and now my account's quite big, which I don't know, it's still quite crazy to me because, I only literally joined in March, and it's just, yeah, the feedback and like just knowing that I'm helping people as well has just helped my own, my own well-being and everything. Like, it's just the first time, I feel accepted. And yeah, so that's kind of my journey, and I'm about to start university, so that's like going to be another big step for me. I'll still go and then be discovering myself and, what works best for me, and how, links to self-care as well, how I can look after myself like when I'm miles from home, which is very scary. But yeah.
So, Izzy, how did you come up with the focus for your account as Autie Self-Care?
Mm-hmm.
What prompted that in your life?
Mm-hmm. I think when I was kind of thinking about starting it, I was kind of looking through some other names, and I was like, okay, I want to try and do something a little different. And I've really struggled with, well, same with a lot of autistic people, I think, with my mental health. And I think it was right before I started my account, I was in the headspace where I was accepting myself for who I am. So, I was kind of starting to unmask and starting to look after myself. And I was like, okay, well, that's kind of going to link to it. So I wanted to kind of have some link to kind of, mental health and all of that. And so that's kind of where it came from, just because, the biggest thing for me in my journey has just been exactly that, like self-care, like looking after myself. And, it takes a while, but just learning how to, knock down the walls, that we have built up from all our negative experiences, and just, do what's best for us. And yeah, so that's probably where it came from. It's weird, it just clicked. Like, I was brainstorming one night and I was like, no, that's the one it's going to be. So yeah, that's probably where it came from, I think.
I love that. And I think you're right. It really is something that we learn because we have really been living in a responsive state, a protective state of constantly trying to mitigate and minimize any sort of damage to ourselves from the external world, because we've gotten so much negative feedback. There's a lot of trauma. There's a lot of PTSD as a result, and complex PTSD especially from school.
Oh,
That's
that's
a
the biggest one.
tremendous one. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm 47 and I can still look back and see the tremendous impact that some of those things in school, and we talked about that in August, going back to school in our series there, about the trauma and some of the things that we've experienced. But when you know you're autistic and you know things about yourself, and you start to learn and you start to care for yourself and really do those self-care things,
Yeah.
and it does shift how you feel and look at yourself, and you do start to experience that self-love. So,
Definitely.
Izzy, what does self-care look like for you in your life?
That's such a broad question, but I think probably to me, it's just, making an effort and like, doing like a conscious kind of thought of, okay, I'm gonna look after myself. I'm gonna, do something that I need to do for me, not for other people. I think the self is kind of really important. Like a lot of the times you're told things to do. Like even simple things like, oh, brush your teeth. And it's like having a change of mindset from, I'm going to do it for me, I'm going to do it for me because I want nice teeth. That's such a bad example, but like just that shift in mindset. And then to me, I kind of think of it in like three kind of areas. So there's obviously like the physical one. So, there's like exercise, eating a healthy diet, getting enough sleep, all of that kind of thing. But what I kind of didn't realize was part of self-care is like, the mental and emotional side of it. So, allowing yourself to feel emotions and like to regulate them in a healthy way. Like meeting up with other people and like trying to do stuff to help your relationships, not like isolating yourself, but then at the same time, giving yourself that time out. It's like getting a balance, I guess. Allowing yourself, to stim freely and do, simple things like that. It's just so much bigger than just what everyone in school especially kind of says: eat, sleep, all of that. And even, yeah, it's really broad, but to me, it's kind of all of those things kind of intertwined. And yeah, to me recently, it's just been exploring kind of the mental side of it. Because I've kind of always been good with exercise. Probably the opposite. I've probably done too much. But yeah,
Yeah,
I've
I'm in
always,
physical therapy for my
yeah.
shoulder because I hurt it at the gym. So I'm right there with you.
Yeah. I recently did a marathon with no training. I just rocked up on the day, ran 28 miles and then went home. Or what, don't recommend it.
Oh my
So,
gosh, like I'm doing a
yeah.
160-kilometer challenge and it's just like
Uh-huh.
it is a slow
Uh-huh.
process.
Yeah.
So I am so, oh my gosh, Izzy, rock
Yeah.
it, girl.
Oh no, it's not a good thing. I don't recommend it, honestly. I couldn't walk for like 3 or 4 days. It's
Oh, I
awful.
bet.
But yeah, that although I was exercising, again, not probably a good example of self-care because yeah, no, don't
I
recommend.
love the fearless attitude though. You're just like, hey, let's just try it. Let's just give it a
Yeah,
go. And you finished. I mean,
yeah.
that's
I
holy
mean,
cow.
I was raising money for an autism charity actually, who had really helped me. So I kind of had that goal. And I'm a
Oh,
little
you had a
lazy.
motivator.
Yeah, and I mean I was meant to train, but in a way I was doing self-care because I was trying to like I had a really rocky kind of couple months. And I feel like when you're kind of that low, like physical self-care doesn't come as easily.
True.
It's not that easy to get yourself up, dress, leave the house to go on a run. Like,
Yeah.
even getting out of bed was a challenge at that point. So but yeah, I had that motivation. I was like, no, I want to raise this money to say thank you. But yeah, so that's kind of what it means to me. It's such a hard question though.
It really is. And we're talking about boundaries, internal and external boundaries. So let's just kind of define this a little bit. So external boundaries allow you to recognize where you stop and where other people start.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, who am I? What's my space? And, that is something that's fluid and it changes throughout our
Mm-hmm.
life as our awareness of ourself changes, right, Izzy? And then we
Yeah.
have our internal boundaries, which help you regulate the relationship you have with yourself. Now, as a late identified autistic woman and as a late identified autistic teen, that's a big one for us, isn't it?
Mm-hmm.
Like
Definitely.
regulating that relationship with
Yeah.
ourselves.
Mm-hmm. That's definitely it's the hardest one, but once you've kind of, you start that process, it's like life changing. And it's also just yeah, it's just such a good feeling. And it also, again, like really kind of helps yourself as well. Because when you start that process, it's like, I don't know, it's like a weight's lifted off your shoulders. Because when you start to understand yourself, you slowly then start to kind of accept yourself. And then you don't go out and you have like, I used to go out with like kind of like a mental list of everything I had to do to kind of be neurotypical, I guess. So I didn't know at the
Oh, I
time.
love it. I love it.
Yeah, I didn't know at the time that I was autistic. So in my head then it was like to fit in. But now
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay, I see what I was doing. And just like, going out and being myself, I think is such a big one. So like even at the moment, I mean, I have a massive love for like soft toys, and
Mhm.
Squishmallows and all of them.
I
Yeah,
want one so bad. I went
I
online and
recommended it.
they have a Tigger Squishmallow.
Oh, they
My
honestly
my ultimate favorite character in the whole wide world is Tigger.
go
Because that's
for
kind of
it,
me. And my
honestly.
mom is the OG Tigger.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah,
Oh my
honestly,
gosh, I
that's so
love
soft.
those things.
Yeah, well, I have like 10, and some of them are quite big. And like, my mum said to me, she was like, you can't take them to uni. And I was like, yes, I can.
Why not?
She was like, well, don't you think it's a little strange? And I at that point, I'm like, I love who I am. If people are going to bully me for that, then, that's their problem.
Well, I'm
Um,
just going to tell you,
yeah.
I'm 47, so I was in college, like over 25, 26
Mhm,
years ago. And
mhm.
I had tons of my friends, my girlfriends, my sorority sisters. We all had stuffies on our bed.
Yeah.
So
That's
take
the
your
thing.
squishmallows. Nobody's going to say
No things
anything
to
about
say.
it. They're gonna be in your room
Yeah,
to
no,
touch them.
they will. They'll be on my bed. And I think
Yeah.
what I was trying to do by saying this is basically, I feel like once you get to that point where you accept yourself, like for example, my squishmallows make me feel really good. And I know that if I don't take them, like it will be a disaster. So kind of
Yeah.
having that mindset where you accept yourself, again, it's like literally like a weight's lifted off. It's like, no, I can be who I am. I don't have to pretend, like I don't have to be ashamed of who I am. And all of those things, it's just, again, they help prevent burnout as well, because you're free, you can be yourself, you don't come home exhausted after like pretending to be someone else, which definitely is probably the best thing. But yeah.
Well, other than reflection work and our energy appraisal, which were the two first steps in our self-care plan from the inside out,
Mhm.
then we moved into our thought thermostat, which helps us identify that our thoughts are not us, that we have the ability to reject thoughts that we just don't agree with anymore. And we're able to start to build that and acknowledge where we have those points of resistance. And I think because those points of resistance that we face help us identify areas where we can become aware and grow and change and start to choose what we are doing in our life. And it also allows us to regulate our energy, because if we continue to resist those points of resistance that we have, it is an energy drainer. It sucks our energy. And that's one of the things that leads to burnout. And internal and external boundaries can be one of the final areas in sort of creating the self-care plan from the inside out that can really influence our energy regulation, because when we do not have and we have not thoughtfully constructed our internal and our external boundaries, we have no framework to say yes and no in our life. And I think what happens for a lot of us, we can have either rigid boundaries or loose boundaries. And this is where I found myself. Maybe you found yourself in this place too. When you have these rigid boundaries, the way that can kind of show up or look is that you're keeping your distance from everybody. It's like, rather than even try that because I've been hurt, I'm just going to keep my distance and keep to myself. You can seem or appear to other people to be very detached, even with loved ones. Like you're just keeping that wall up. Um, some of that can be that you have very few really close or true connection relationships, or that you avoid those close connections. When you're being really rigid with your boundaries. And this was more me. I was more the loose boundaries. I was kind of a crossover hybrid, I guess. But then I had like these loose boundaries where I would get too involved in other people's
Mhm.
lives or problems, like feeling like I wanted to help and fix it. So I had like no boundaries for like where I stopped and where they started.
Mhm.
I would have really difficulty saying no. People pleaser over here, big time.
Mhm.
Oversharing, like not knowing when it was appropriate and
Yeah.
inappropriate to not just like word vomit on people. And I
Mhm.
think so many of us really struggle with the
Mhm.
oversharing part.
Mhm.
And just lastly, seeking to please for the fear of rejection. And
Mhm.
that was such a big one.
Mhm.
And, I think when you have like either those really rigid or those really loose boundaries, or sort of like I did, I had sort of that hybrid of those rigid and loose boundaries, both
Mhm.
internally and externally, that it didn't allow me to have space for me.
Mhm.
I lost myself.
Mhm.
I didn't know who I was because I didn't know how to set space for
Mhm.
myself.
Mhm.
What about you? How did rigid or loose boundaries play into your boundaries and self-care, Izzy?
Well, it's kind of a mix for me. I would say my whole kind of like life is in the real world, not online. I'm definitely very, very rigid. Like very rigid. um, like yeah, it's a bit real issue and something that I've definitely been trying to, especially when I'm going off to uni, I do kind of need to, I'm trying to be a little bit more flexible, I guess, which does not come easily to autistic people, but
Mm,
yeah. Um, and it was kind of at the point where I was kind of shutting myself off from all my friends because I can't, it's hard to explain, but I've had really bad experiences in the past. And I was just kind of, yeah, I just didn't want it to happen again. But I was just being too kind of rigid about it. So that's kind of me there. And I would just always say no to things, even like my automatic thing when someone, you know, whoever it is asks to do something, I'll just be like, no, I just want to stay inside. I want to stay in my room. And while, you know, I do really encourage, you know, taking time out to be on your own to recover, it's not healthy to spend your whole time on your own. And it's kind of like a negative kind of cycle, you know, like, I don't know, it's just, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we need that alone time. We need
Yeah.
that space that's just ours. But there's a point of a point of
Yeah.
diminishing return
Yeah.
where it then becomes an energy drainer. You know, because I talk about 7 other forms of rest, and one of
Yeah.
those other areas of rest is social rest. And that doesn't mean unplugging and removing yourself from social connection. It means plugging into and
Yeah.
drawing energy from those connections. And for us, and as autistics, I define that very differently. My social connection is I have amazing friends that I've made online. We Zoom, we talk on the phone, you know. I I write, you know, and do things in social connection. I am part of the Autistic Art Club. So on Saturdays, you know, Zoe has these amazing
Yeah.
classes and we get together and we Zoom and create art together. And that is my social rest because it energizes me. It also gives me creative space. And finding those things that align with what I define as social rest for myself, where I gain energy, and also noticing those areas where it depletes me. Like I know that I can do XYZ in social connection where it's energizing me, but at this point I know it's going to drain me.
Yeah, I
Like
think that's a really important one, and one for me that I'm still learning. I don't think I'm quite there yet. Because
we're all still learning, Izzy.
yeah, like for me online, it definitely, like my account literally, like it just made me feel so good. You know, it was literally like you say, like social connection. When I went on, it just, I met the most amazing people and it was the best. But then there becomes a point where, you know, the online world can be very I guess people
Brutal.
forget that there's, yeah, people forget that there's, you know, real people behind the account. And it can be very draining. And I think for me, I lost myself definitely. Like I can remember it was like over the summer because I got very hyper fixated on stuff, and it wasn't. I'd spend my whole time either I was mentoring other autistic people, so I would spend my entire time either mentoring or just doing stuff online. And it just, I kind of got thrown in, and I kind of like, yeah, I had it in my mind, okay, I should probably go and shower. You know, it's been 5 days. I should shower. But in my head, I was like, no, like I need to do, you know, I need to do another post, Instagram, I need to do this, I need to do that. Like it's not a priority. And I think a lot of us do kind of see self-care as kind of like a luxury, not a priority. And I think that's kind of the mindset that I'm trying to get out of. Because, you know, my Instagram account will always be there, but my body needs to be looked after. And my mind, you know, my mind needs to be looked after, or I'll kind of reach burnout, which is exactly what happened. You know, I was kind of at the point where I was like on the edge, and then I got a load of abuse online, and that was like the tipping point. I just like spiraled. And I think at that point, I mean, I'm currently on a break now. I was just kind of taking a break from everything. So just, I guess, just giving myself the time to kind of rediscover myself again, and just, you know, kind of get in the self-care kind of thing again, and just learn to kind of, I mean, we're all learning. I'm only, you know, we're all like, it doesn't matter how old you are, you know, you'll always,
Sometimes you don't know what that adjustment in your boundary
yeah,
is until
yeah,
something negative impacts you in
yeah.
a way that you're like, wow, that doesn't work.
Yeah, so for me going forwards, I'll probably maybe set like times I'll be online, you know, because before I mean, I used to have like 500 message requests, and I would literally refuse to go to sleep until I'd replied to every single one. And I would have all-nighters, like I wouldn't sleep, because like in myself, I didn't have that boundary. I was like, no, you know. And there was one incident where I had someone kind of reach out to me and kind of use me as a crisis line. And they were like, oh, I'm going to go, I don't want to, like, you know, say what it is in case they're watching or anything, but they basically were like threatening to harm themselves if I
Yeah.
left the chat. And that was like scary situation, because I had
Yes.
stuff to do. Like we had planned a day out and I was just sat on my phone like, what do I do? And it did really impact me because I
Oh,
didn't want
Izzy, I'm
to
so
myself.
sorry. That is really hard.
Yeah,
That's tough.
yeah, but I mean, for me, I guess I am quite vulnerable, and I just want to do good. And at that point, like I knew if it was me on the other end, I know how I'd feel. So I was just trying to get them safe, and then kept on like dropping hints I had to go, and they were just not having any of it. And at that point, that was when I kind of introduced the kind of like DM boundary, where try and email if you want advice, don't DM me, and like I won't, all of that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think it's literally a learning process, which can be really terrible and in the moment when things like that happen.
Yes, it
But
can be.
yeah, but yeah, you have to, I guess, yeah, you have to make mistakes and you have to kind of, struggle to kind of learn how to, and then you do things better. But yeah, it's still a process, definitely.
It is. And, I want to just quickly, let's cover the four areas of personal boundaries here, because I want to dive back in and talk about social settings, social media boundaries, because I
Yeah.
think that's something you and I have both
Hmm.
really had to sort of trial and error for
Yeah.
ourselves, because it's a big one. And I know everybody on the other side listening and watching to this episode has had the same challenges, because
Mhm.
it's something that we are all facing because it's something that's
Yeah.
really different. So the first area of personal boundaries is your physical. This is the easiest one because it's something you can sort of, it's more tangible. Like,
Mhm.
what's my physical boundary? Like, what's my personal space and what's your personal space?
Yeah.
Where does that
Yeah.
start and stop? And then we have mental boundaries. That's our
Mhm.
thoughts. And that's one that really ties into that episode that we talked about in self-talk and the thought thermostat. So,
Mhm.
what are your mental boundaries that you're setting with yourself? And what are the mental boundaries in your thoughts,
Mhm.
and how you're either just letting them go, knowing that they're not you, and which ones are you like, yeah, that's me. I'm going to keep that one.
Mhm.
And being able to separate yourself from those thoughts in that sort of third person area. The third area of personal boundaries is emotional. And emotional boundaries are really important. And I think this sort of ties into the social media thing because
Mhm.
it does impact your emotions. And as an ADHDer, it also hits my dopamine.
Mhm.
It's got the dopamine hit. So you have to just be aware of that, and be able to sort of adjust it for your own healthy needs. But
Mhm.
emotional boundaries allow space to have our own feelings.
Mhm.
And that's one that I didn't even have when I didn't know I was autistic. I didn't realize I had those really loose boundaries impact sort of that emotional factor big time when you're people pleasing or you're doing things because you don't want to say no and have somebody feel like you're rejecting them and you don't want them to reject you in return. So that emotional one can be really tough. And the
Mhm.
final one is spiritual, and not from a religious standpoint, but just simply from your soul standpoint, your being standpoint. And it's what do I believe? What are the definitions of what I believe, and
Mhm.
how does that define my place in the world on that external greater, universal scale? Who am I? Why am I here? What's my purpose kind of thing? And adjusting those boundaries. And the thing I think that's really important, and you and I kind of touched on this before we recorded, was in all four of these areas, they're fluid, they change, they evolve over time. So being aware of them and noticing where those points of resistance come in or where things just get messy and they are not working,
Mhm.
those are the indicators that it's time to reevaluate and adjust what
Mhm.
those internal and external boundaries are that we set in these four areas. So, Izzy, what would you say now that you kind of learned, or what's something that you would share with somebody listening today when it comes to setting some social media boundaries for your self care and your health?
I think for me, the thing that's I've kind of learned recently is that, everyone on there, everyone's kind of, they're all understanding, if it's okay to take like a mental health break, it's okay. And I think for me, because I'm a big people pleaser, like I guess I've been rejected a lot in my life, and I kind of fear that. So again, it's similar to the DM thing. I don't want to let anyone down. I don't want to say no, but say no. But I think just like for me, just being able to say no to someone, you know, if they ask me, I don't know, a really personal question, just being able to say no, and just, you know, you don't have to go online. You know, going online should be something you enjoy, and it should, you know, be that connection and make you feel good. And when it gets to the point where you don't want to go on, but you like make yourself, that's the point where, you know, you kind of take a step back and like reevaluate. And also, like, every day you'll feel different. So I used to have the mindset where, okay, I'm gonna do a post every other day. Like, doesn't matter what's going on, every other day at this time I'll like post something. And now after taking a break, I'm like, no, you know, I don't have to post at a certain time every other day. I should do it when I feel able to, you know.
Yes,
Like,
that's a big one. That was one I had to learn too, Izzy.
yeah. And I feel like when you first start out, you're so like wanting to please everyone and, you know, get loads of likes and all that kind of thing, and get all the followers and stuff. But you kind of forget that you come first, and that, you know, I mean, even if social media is your job, like, still, you can still always like take a mental health break. Like, your mental health comes first. So I think that's definitely a big one. And like, even with like not in a like my advocacy kind of way, even with my friends, you know, when it gets to the point where I have to physically force myself to pick up the phone and reply to someone, I know in that mindset that, you know, take some time out. Like, you're not, you know, you don't have to do it, and like, no one's going to be mad at you. And I think that's the thing that I've learned, when I just reached out and said, look, you know, I'm having a bad day, you know, I'm not really up for, you know, doing this. Everyone's, you know, they'd rather know if, you know, so like, it's, yeah, just is okay, and don't blame yourself. Like, it's not your fault either. And I think the
We're
other
all
thing,
human. We have good days and bad days.
yeah, and I think the other thing is just, you know, every day you will feel different. So a boundary is not having one set boundary in place every day. It's kind of, you know, changing day by day. So, you know, some days I like may have one certain type of boundary, and then someday I may wake up and, I don't know, be in a really, really sociable mood, for example. And my boundary before of, I don't know, you know, like how long I meet for, or I don't know, literally it could be anything, may not apply on that day. So I think it's also kind of learning to, you know, like you said, it is fluid. And yeah, I guess it's just boundaries are just so important. Because
And
when
they're
you,
not easy. They're
yeah,
really
it's,
not. It is something that it
mhm,
takes practice. And the best way really is just start small. You don't have to start in all four areas and set, you know, like these big hard boundaries. You don't have to make a list. Just start with one spot where you're like, yeah, this is a place where I've noticed, and if you're doing your energy appraisal, this is where it really comes in handy. It's like, where's my energy going out?
mhm,
And
mhm,
what can I do? Or
mhm.
who can I be really is the bigger shift. Who am
Yeah,
I being that is allowing this to happen? And what shift can I do within my being?
mhm.
Who I'm being in
Yeah, I
order to
think,
change where
yeah,
that energy's coming in? How do I
yeah,
fuel myself?
yeah. Something that I really like is the spoon theory analogy,
Yes.
um, where, you know, you only have a certain number of spoons, and just that's, again, is like, for me, has been really important with like self-care and everything, because I would overdo it before. You know, I would just feel like I have to do everything at once. And I think just knowing that, you know, you only have a certain amount of energy, and just kind of allocating and kind of working out what uses up the most energy. So for me, like, meeting up with a friend, for example, uses up more energy than, I don't know, let's say just doing a Zoom call. So I think, like, for me, I'll kind of work that out, and then, you know, after I meet a friend, I won't schedule anything after that, so I can have that, you know, like, I don't use up all my energy. I can kind of recover and gain energy back. I don't know if that makes sense,
Oh,
but
it
yeah,
totally does because I
it's
have a
very,
threshold on
yeah,
my like events that I do each day, and I
yeah,
know how much recovery time that I usually
uh-huh,
need afterward. And
mhm,
I think what happens too is that in spoon theory, and it works really well if only if you're able to recognize not only where your spoons are being allocated, but how you can restore and replenish your spoon supply. Because if you're only trying to protect the number of spoons you have and you are not trying to gain any more spoons somewhere in your life to replenish as they're also going out, it doesn't work. It doesn't work. My dog had to go out. So everybody that just heard all that moaning and things, it was the dog having to go out. So Granny opened the door. And I think it's really important too, and my mentor taught me this, and it was such a huge moment for me. And I want to share this because it was something that really made me look at boundaries in a very, very different light. And that was, he said, Carole Jean, how can anyone respect your yes if they never get a no from you? Someone isn't going to respect your yes if they don't know that you have a no. Your no has to be in place. And I can't trust someone's yes, and I can't trust someone's no if I don't know that they're capable of setting a boundary. And that was just like, holy cow, I'd never thought of it like that. Had you ever thought of that, Izzy?
No, that's like, yeah,
mind-blowing, right?
I'll be writing that quote down and like pinning it on my board. Honestly, it's such a good way of looking at it though, because it's so true and it's so right. And yeah, it's just, that I'm speechless, honestly. Like, it's such a, I love that. Was it your mentor who said it?
Yes.
I love them, whoever they are. I love that.
Oh, Jim is fantastic. But it truly is. He was like, how can anyone respect and trust your yes if they don't ever hear a no from you? Because they have no idea what your boundary is. And I was just like, oh my gosh, that's just huge. That was huge for me.
Yeah, I feel like
I'm getting that this might be huge for you too.
Yeah, it really is. And I feel like for me, I always grew up like I just wanted to be accepted. So I would never ever say no, ever, because I thought if I said no, like no one would like me, which isn't true, by the way.
Right, really, I think we've all found that out.
It's really not true. But I guess I kind of became the person where everyone just knew I'd always say yes. So they would just ask me to do the most ridiculous things. Like it would get absurd sometimes. Like
almost just to see if you'd say no or do it.
Yeah, and they'd like kind of push all my buttons and try and get me to the limit. And I'd never say no, but yeah, I think it's definitely really important because you don't want your friends or anyone to kind of push you around, I guess. And you know, you do have boundaries. You don't have to do anything. You know, like unless, well, even if they have a gun to your head, like you still don't have to, like, you know, like just don't do anything you don't want to do. You know, say no. It's completely okay. And if they do, and this is the thing that I've kind of learned, that if they do reject you because they say no, like you don't want them in your life anyway. You know, and I know that's a really hard kind of thing to kind of learn, but for me, I had kind of had a situation where I had a friend who didn't accept me as being autistic. She was just embarrassed about the whole thing. You know, she didn't want to be friends with an autistic person. And when I, you know, by me telling her that, like, it was a blessing in disguise. Like, yeah, at the time, I cried for months. I was so upset. But now I'm like, no, you know, I don't want people like that in my life. You know, yeah, it might feel crap at the time, but you kind of, if they do reject you for saying no, or whatever you do, you come first, and at least you know that's what they're like.
Well, and the other side of that too is that in that same relationship where we want someone to acknowledge and honor our yes and respect our no, and be able to have that balance, we also in return have to extend that back and be able to honor and respect someone's yes and someone's no. And a lot of times what I've found for myself, especially if it's, you know, it is that blessing in disguise. I call it self-pruning, When people prune themselves from my life, they decide that I'm not their person, I'm okay with that because I'm not everybody's person. And when somebody says, like, no, you're not my person, or sometimes people usually are not as, you know, they don't quietly leave the digital door. Sometimes they, you know, want to behave really unkindly before leaving. You know, they want to start the dumpster fire and then leave for everybody else to kind of deal with it. But when that happens, it's also our opportunity to go, it's not about me, because it's not. Just because I'm not somebody's person, that's okay. How they respond to me not being their person, that is coming directly from them. And it's not about me. It's about whatever has happened in their life. It's whatever experience and emotions and the beliefs that they're carrying that have contributed to that. And you know, it's like, it's okay. I'm not your person. That's all right. And you know, I even say the whole reason I have this talk show was because I might not be your person, but I want to introduce you to your person. I want to help you find your person, because for me, I think it's important in late identified life, especially, that we have that one person. If nothing else, we have at least one person that we can go, man, they get me and I get them. And this is someplace and someone that I can talk to and really feel a connection with on a way that I never have before. So if I'm not your person, or I'm only sort of your person, Izzy might be your person. She is, you know, you might be like totally resonating and you're like, heck yeah, Izzy is my person. Go follow her, go check her out on Instagram. She is an amazing person. Izzy, before we wrap up, I would love for you to share, what is the one thing, if you could tell a newly identified autistic who's just learning about their neurotype, what is the one thing you would like them to know today?
That's such a hard one. There's so many. I'd say though, it's okay to, you know, you're not gonna immediately get your diagnosis and just immediately fall in love with it. You know, it definitely takes time. And I think that is probably one thing that, yeah, I mean, when I first got mine, it took me 2 years.
That's about how long it took me. It was like a 2-year window.
And I think, yeah, I'd say just keep persevering with it, you know, keep learning. I think learning about yourself is definitely, the more you learn about autism and the more you kind of, you know, then the more you understand yourself, and then it kind of starts the whole cycle off. And I guess the other thing is just, you know, everyone is different. So don't compare yourself to other people, because you know, everyone is different. Even another autistic person, like me and, for example, someone I met online, yeah, we're quite similar, but we're not the same. You know, like everyone's different. And I think, you know, yeah, we're in a world kind of built for neurotypicals. And I think like comparing yourself is really bad, but especially comparing yourself to someone who doesn't have the same brain as you and whose wiring is different. It's just, you know, just kind of
apples and oranges.
Yeah, literally. So yeah,
so find your oranges.
Yeah, I would say just keep learning, you know, just keep learning. Like even me, I'm still learning. So yeah, just, and don't put pressure on yourself to do anything either. You know, like give yourself the time.
Set a boundary. I love it.
And then the last thing is just that, just you might have had like a really bad, you know, like for me, I didn't have the happiest upbringings, nothing to do with my family in that sense, just in the sense of I was never accepted. But there are people out there who will accept you for who you are. So just keep going and you will, you know, you will find them. Yeah, like your autistic people are amazing. Like, yes, society may not see us like that, but like you will find, like I promise you that you will find someone like you. And yeah, just I guess just remember like you're autistic, and it's like, you know, there are so many advantages to that as well. And at the same, sorry, this is way more than one thing, but
No, I
I'd
love
say
it.
the last thing is just you have a right to kind of ask for help and ask for accommodations. Um,
Oh, Izzy,
I think
right there is huge.
that's something that took me kind of a while to learn. And like now I'm at the point where I will literally fight someone if they don't, you know, if they're being ableist, I like they can't hide. But I think just kind of, you know, if someone's, I don't know, let's say you're in school, for example, and you find like noise annoying, for example, you want to wear earplugs and they say no, like that's not right. You have that right to, you know, you can't treat everyone the same, and just kind of acknowledging that, and just, you know, allowing yourself to say no, this is what I need, you know, and just, yeah, that is amazing. But yeah, just take your time, like it won't happen overnight, and
No,
just
it
and just
doesn't. And you got to start small with those
yeah,
two sometimes to kind of
yeah,
gain the confidence for asking. You know, I was really proud of myself because I had to make a phone call to an
mm-hmm,
insurance company the other day, and the
mm-hmm,
person was talking very fast. And I
mm-hmm,
have an auditory processing
mm-hmm,
challenge. And so I was really proud. I stopped and I said, I want to ask you to please slow down. I have
mm-hmm,
an auditory processing delay and it takes me a minute, and you are speaking too fast for me to process.
mm-hmm,
And this is very difficult. Could you please slow down and go back and repeat what you just said? And she was like, oh, sure. And she slowed down, took her time, and I was able to complete this very challenging, what in the past would have been like torture phone call. And I probably would have missed half of the important things they said. But because I was just finally asking for those accommodations that I need, and I knew that I needed them. That was the other thing. I didn't know that I needed it. And to ask for that is so huge, and not worry about what
yeah,
anybody else thinks. So start with strangers, start small, you know, but to gain some
yeah,
of the confidence to start asking for the bigger
yeah.
things, because
And
you
I would
completely
say,
have the
yeah,
right.
yeah. And I'd say definitely like you can also learn from other people as well. Like for me, it like it's really hard to think of accommodations that you might need, but like kind of reading other people's experiences online. And I've mentioned it before, the actually autistic, it's a hashtag actually autistic community online is like amazing. And
Yes.
just like reading other people's experiences, and then you go, oh, that would help me as well. And just, you know, learning from other people and learn like and just engaging is just like amazing. um and also like you can ask them for help as well. You know, like for me it can be sometimes, you know, I'll be like, I don't know what to do about, I don't know this, what do I, you know, and just, yeah, just engage with other autistic people. That's probably the best, my
I
big
agree.
advice. Yeah.
Izzy, thank you so much for being here today. If you have not yet followed or checked out Izzy's account on Instagram, it's Autie Self Care, and I'll be sure to have a link to her account down in the show notes below. Today, Izzy and I have talked about the 4 areas of personal boundaries: physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual. We've talked about what external boundaries are and what they look like, what those internal boundaries are and what they look like, and how it can help you regulate your relationship you have with yourself, which is a really big one for so many of us. We have those rigid and loose boundaries. We have sometimes the hybrid of what those two do and come together. So don't forget, this is the 4th step in your self care plan from the inside out. And we'll be going deeper into our thought thermostat and self talk, as well as setting internal and external boundaries and what those healthy internal and external boundaries look like and what they can be and how to set them up and how to notice when it's time maybe to adjust them. We're going to be going deeper into this in this part 2 workshop coming up on Friday, September 24th at 3 p.m. The registration link for this live Zoom workshop will be in the show notes below. Be sure, if you can't attend, that you do get registered, because you will get a replay sent directly to your email. Izzy, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you for being a part of the Mind Your Autistic Brain community.
Thank you for having me. It's been great. Thank you.
If you are someone who likes to help people and share what has made a difference in your life, please share this talk show with a friend and on your social media accounts so that you can be the blessing in another late identified autistic's life. Be sure to tag me at Social Autie so I can personally say thank you. And to help keep the talk show ad-free, please consider becoming a one-time or recurring supporter through either Buy Me a Coffee or the Anchor podcast links in the show notes below. I truly appreciate your support. Thank you for being a listener, and thank you for adding your voice to our story.